All right, so our theme of the week for shorts and videos is narcissism. So I want to talk about the two most common types of narcissists. But before I do, I want to clarify that narcissism is just a term, right? Or a label that we assign to people who have emotional repression and buried emotions in their bodies. In childhood, the people that we call narcissists push certain feelings down into their bodies because it wasn't safe to feel or express them. And as a result, they're forced to identify with what some people call the ego, which Eckhart Tolle defines as a false, mind-made sense of self, right? And that typically manifests in one of two ways. Number one, the overt, grandiose, or classic narcissist. These are people whose egos or false selves manifest as big, dominant, aggressive, loud, right? It's often mistakenly associated with men or the masculine, but that's not really true because about half the people that we work with in KI who deal with this overt or grandiose narcissism are women. But whether male or female or anywhere in between, the reason that these folks get stuck in this particular suffering state is because the emotions that they repressed in childhood were vulnerable ones, like hurt, sadness, or grief. But all this means is that there's a truckload of frozen fear in their bodies and nervous systems around the reservoir of buried, vulnerable emotions, right? And this compels them to get big because it's safe. It's the safest place for them. And so anger, aggression, dominance, or irritability, that's their default, right? That's their mask. Now, the second type is the covert or vulnerable narcissist, right? These are folks who repress bigger emotions and energies like anger or power, right? I'm actually a recovering one of these. We learned in childhood to push down these bigger emotions and energies, and we tend to show up in the world as peaceful or kind or humble, but that's our false self. What's really happening is our systems are terrified of the buried reservoir of anger. And frankly, and paradoxically, we're the more dangerous kind because the way that our false self or ego manifests is socially acceptable. So we've got free reign to, point at the overt narcissists or the hurt repressors and, say, there's the problem. Look at what they're doing, so obvious. And again, people tend to associate this anger repression or covert narcissism with the feminine, but it's just not the case. I work with tons of guys who deal with this. And like I said, I'm one, my co-developer Scott's one. But you gotta watch out for us because there's a lot of people in the helping field, like teachers, therapists, facilitators of healing, that are doing all of this in order to avoid dealing with their buried anger, right? And this is sort of the definition of codependency and trauma bonding. Helping, saving, rescuing, fixing, and caretaking when we have buried emotions, especially anger, that's about us trying to get our needs met. It's kind of gross. But regardless of what emotions you're burying or what kind of narcissism you're carrying, you can get free of it with emotional repression work. And you can learn more about that right here.